lectured on art with an emphasis on ancient Nubia and the master artist John Biggers, and frequently traveled to South Africa. I'm going to introduce Larry because I have faith that he's going to come back on. Originally from the Bronx, Larry Pierce has become a pillar of the Grove Hall community. After high school, he joined the Navy as a photographer's mate, working as a videographer before joining his studies at the School of Visual Arts in New York, where he received his BFA. He later joined the Boston Afro-American Artists Association, participating in group shows in and around New England. In 2005, he created the African Winter Gallery in Dorchester. Larry cites his mentors, such as locals Paul Goodnight and Hakeem Rakib, and continues his own mentoring through various programs and workshops from the Dimmock Center in Roxbury, Boston Public Library, hospitals, Pine Street Inn, community centers, senior centers around Boston. Was the artist in residence at the Guild in Dorchester and a member of the Dorchester Arts Collaborative, and lately has been part of public artworks that he's created in the Grove Hall community. So Johnetta, it might be you and us for a little while here. So I'd love to stop talking and to turn it over to you. We had a very lively conversation earlier this week about the importance of Black artists and Boston spaces and institutions that have encouraged you in your work. I'd love to hear more and hear what you have to say about the early mentors of your work and how those voices and that support continue through your work today.
Yes, of course. My first mentor was, of course, John Biggers at Texas Southern University. And to start off, I did come to Texas Southern University knowing the traditional art. You know, I knew how to do perspective. That was at Dorchester High School, which was back then the School for the Arts, and way before Boston Arts Academy. And so I knew all the traditional works of art. I knew how to do perspective. I knew how to, shadow, lights, darks, and I knew all the traditional ways. But when I went to Texas Southern University, John Biggers allowed us to express ourselves. Now, I knew how to do everything traditionally, but I did not know how to do things creatively. So I had to always have a model in front of me, like, a still life or a model or something before I can draw something. And he wanted us to think outside the box and go outside on our head. All the other artists that were there were able to do that, but I couldn't. So I had a hard time doing, trying to think of how do I express myself without looking at a still life or a model or something. How do I do that? And it was very complicated. I remember one time it was like today, 90 degrees and above. And I was sitting there trying to figure things out. And he finally said, "Miss Tinker, come with me, take your stool, your drawing pad and everything, put me out in the heat and put me in a ditch." And told me,
that's one way to get you out of your comfort zone.
You start drawing, draw from nature. And so then he started dragging everybody else out too. And they were looking at me, I was like, it's not my fault. But that was one thing. And of course, his knowledge of just the world. The things that he imparted to us was so important. A lot of times, some of the students would get, accepted into, exhibitions or grants and things like that. And they come in and they're all happy and everything. He said, "That's a wonderful thing. That's wonderful that you did that. But let me tell you one thing." He said that you have to remember that the same people you meet on your way up, you're going to meet them on your way back down. So don't get too high on your horse. The main thing is for you to do the art. And if your art gets accepted, that's wonderful. But if it gets rejected, you go back and you work harder. And those are the things that, a mentor can teach you. And then he told me about Alan Craig. I had to go all the way to Texas Southern University, learn about Alan Craig that was in my neighborhood. And when I graduated from Texas Southern, he told me to Miss Tinker, make sure you go meet Alan Craig and John Wilson. And
for those not familiar with Cray's work, can you give us a little bit of who
well, we called Alan Craig the Dean of the South, and he even has he calls it a triangle named after him. But he did a lot of work, drawings around the South End. And some of these buildings streets don't even exist anymore. You know, so, and he was a WPA artist, work progress administration artist during the Depression. And he did a lot of work around in churches, liturgical work and things like that. So one of my favorite pieces he's done is Madonna on the Subway. And that, you know, you have to Google that one to see it, but that's one of my favorite among many. But he just, well, you know, he fell into my life, even though John Biggers told me to go visit him. And I wrote a letter to Alan Craig, and he invited me to a studio, and I didn't go because I was too timid, and you know, you're young and you don't follow directions like you should. But it happened a couple of years later. So, you know, things are supposed to happen the way they should anyways, even though you go in the opposite direction, there's something that will snap you back. And, you know, Alan Craig was all in I love technology. So you look at my work and you can see both of their influences in my work. It's so interesting that Alan Craig always talked about, when people talk about urban renewal, he called it urban removal.
Hello.
Hi, Larry. I'm glad you made it.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we're good.
Sorry.
And when he talked about history, he always called it his story.
Right.
You know, not her story, not our story, his story. It was interesting. And we could go on, I could go on forever about Alan Craig.
So you did a sort of ping pong, it sounds like, from a very technical high school to Biggers treating you know, asking you to try on craft, and you were talking about before the call got started, pottery and weaving.
Oh yeah, he did not separate the crafts, what we call the crafts, from traditional art. It was all mingled together. So we had to do everything. We
and
had
at what
to
point?
do pottery, we had to do weaving, we had to do all of it.
Right. Right. And throughout the craft, and then the influence of Cray, we're talking about putting more African American and Black figures into art and centering the work on that. Can you, when does that start to come into your work?
Well, of course,
because then you went back to BU, which is also much more technical.
It was very technical, but you know, of course, when I went to Texas Southern, it was right there for me. You know, you know, you can't deny it. It's right in your face. But when I went to BU, I was struggling a bit because I was supposed to take a class from John Wilson. He went on sabbatical. Not the greatest thing then. So
no, bad timing.
I talked to John Biggers because I was struggling, and he said to me, he said, I don't care. Everybody has something to teach you. Learn from what they can give you, and then you mingle it with what you already know. So just go along with the program and just learn how to, you know, do what they're teaching you to do, and see how it can help you along the way. He said, don't stop. They're teaching you something and you can learn from.
So Larry, we're talking about mentorship and those people along the way that we've learned from. And on an earlier call, you were citing some Boston folk.
Those are my Boston influences.
Yes, yeah. Can you tell us more about?
I can go back further if you want.
Please.
Hannah Wilkie, Louise Bourgeois, Jennifer Bartlett. These are my teachers in New York and School of Visual Arts.
And when did you come here to Boston? And have you been in Dorchester the whole time?
Yes, I have. I came in around 1992. I followed my wife here.
And you've been in the Grove Hall area, doing workshops.
doing workshops, doing strange jobs, teaching preschool, you know, just exhibiting my work in and around Boston or the hub, actually.
I think you're selling yourself short. Can you share why and when you started the African Winter Group and what the impetus was for that?
Yeah, I started African Winter Gallery in around 2005.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to, it was a home-based gallery where I wanted to showcase my work and actually the work of other local artists. And it was pretty successful. We got good write-ups in the Globe and the Herald. I sort of shut that down now. And I call myself a professional artist, but I'm working at home. Yeah.
Most people are working at home, and I think the boundaries between studio, home, gallery are all blown down.
Yeah.
I love that both of you are centering your work on others and lifting up, especially Larry, in your work of creating these galleries, of supporting the community around you.
Mm-hmm.
Larry, I'd love to hear more about your thoughts on public art as one of those ways to lift up the local community, especially artists in Dorchester, and then we'll get even more specific with Grove Hall.
Yeah, well, I did workshops in Grove Hall, and I'm still doing them, actually. I'm working with Echo Homes, and I'm working with the director of Grove Hall BPL, Paul Edwards. So, but I'm also involved with Paul Goodnight in a program called KKK, which is Kids Killing Kids. And it's an offshoot of a program that was very successfully started in Detroit, and it's a collection of 7 artists, and each of us are doing 2 works of art. One shows the problem, and the other shows a solution or possible solution. So that's what we're working on now, and yeah, we're trying to have an effect. It seems like just the violence that's been happening in this country in general has pretty much taken the focus away from that a little bit. But that's something that we are very much involved with and concerned about.
What are some of the solutions that are showing up in these works, and are they artworks?
They're artworks. One of my paintings, the problem shows a young man named Yummy Sandiford. I read this story in Time magazine, oh my God, about 20 years ago. He was a young boy in Chicago, a gangbanger, who led a pretty troubled life, and he was actually executed by his own gang after a shootout went wrong and an innocent girl got shot. So the heat was so intense, and the police looking for him, they knew who it was. His own gang members decided to shoot him. His nickname was Yummy because he was 11 years old, but he had a sweet tooth that was ridiculous. He loved candy and cookies and sweets. So that was a problem. The solution, I did a painting of 2 of my colleagues, Mercy Frazier and an artist you may be familiar with. His name is Rob Gibbs, but he goes by Pro Black.
Sure.
So I have the 2 of them. I have her holding a fake Glock pistol, and she's standing in back of him, and he's pretty much pushing the pistol down. And the story goes that her young son was killed by a gang member, and she was so distraught that she went and found a gun under the bed of her older son, and she went downstairs to confront these gang members, and her husband saw her just in time, so he prevented that violence from occurring. So my message was, at some point, we have to break the cycle of revenge, retribution. Somebody has to find another way, you know?
Yeah. in a lot of these conversations, the need for healing has come up over and over again. And violence is pervasive in our conversations. One of the topics that we talked about, both of us, all three of us together, was public space right now. Mm-hmm. And you know, we're in this moment of being locked in our spaces, our houses, or choosing to be in those spaces. Yet there are public spaces around Grove Hall that haven't been developed, that are you know, calling for imagination. And Johnetta, I wonder if there are some that you've looked at. You've lived there for a long time now. Mm-hmm. That you'd like to highlight as possible spaces for those, either healing or gathering or art.
Well, of course, the space across from the library on Geneva Ave, and that space is just raw right now, and it's a large enough space that it could have multiple uses. People park there because there's not enough parking in the library, and there has to be parking space because a lot of seniors park there to go to the senior center, and teachers park there at the Burke School because there's not enough parking there. But there's also could be some green space there, and space for artists to do installations. There's a lot of things that could happen there. I attended one of I think it's Mass Art Spark Artmobiles with Equa. She invited me to one of her pop-up projects that was happening there. And I was able to walk there from my house because I didn't want to drive because I didn't think there would be parking for me. And I was going to spend just a couple of minutes, go up and say hi. I wound up staying the whole time because it was so invigorating. There was music, there was art, there were artists, there was poetry. A lot of things were happening there. I think she had a stage and performances and things like that. And I just see that happening in that space. And I was able to reconnect with one of the art teachers that was at Mother Caroline Academy. And she brought her students there and I was able to meet them. So I just thought it was a wonderful, a lot of families were there. And we just had a wonderful time. I just see that space ever evolving and turning into whatever we wanted to do. But Larry and I talked about this, and he's been on this space for a long time for what he's wanting, so he may want to talk more about it. But it's just raw, it's concrete, there's no green space, it's not a beautiful park that it should be, and it's just, as you drive by, it's kind of an eyesore. And if you see something happening, like what's going on in there now, I mean, it just can't be developed.
Yeah. So Johnetta, you're talking about Equus thing that was outdoors on that lot?
Yes.
Okay, because I had the privilege of doing one of her first art workshops in the community room across the street. Mm-hmm. And when she put the word out, and I went there, the line was out the door.
Right.
And there was standing room only, and we're talking about elderly people all the way down to babies, you know. The enthusiasm was really breathtaking, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. And okay, so that lot across the street has been a thorn in my side since I came from New York. I remember they had a big white tent there, which is midnight basketball.
I called it the Big Bubble.
Yeah, that wasn't too bad. But when they took it down, it's just an ugly eyesore. And you know, I spoke to different artists, Bob Donnell, Paul Goodnight,
yes,
about doing something constructive with that space, you know. First of all, to get rid of the concrete, you know, bring it back to the land, let the land breathe. There's too much concrete in cities anyway, as far as I'm concerned. But let the land breathe, bring back grass and maybe even gravel. You know, you can still, I took a picture from the raised area just behind CVS. Mm-hmm. Overlooking Normandy Street and facing towards Columbia Road. I think I sent both of you images of that, and you can see it.
I'll pull that up now while we're talking, just so people know where
huge,
located.
Huge space and it can accommodate parking, some parking
Yes.
by the garage back there. But
Yes.
yeah, there it is.
So
So
this
I'm
is
standing
the space that
on
we're
the
talking
wall,
about.
actually, looking towards the across from Normandy Street. And what I was envisioning was a stage built, a permanent structure built, a multi-use structure to have, I don't know, music, poetry recitals, you know, community meetings, you know.
I
I'm
think
sorry.
the common thread that you're both talking about is people
Yeah.
and coming together, and you know, people like Aqua who have been in the community and, you know, as a trained educator and facilitator, and can bring us together to think about new possibilities, whether it's this space. Larry, on an earlier call,
Feel the dreams.
said,
If you build it, they will come.
They will come. Yes.
yeah,
They will.
yeah. And Larry, earlier you said, I just want it to breathe, which I thought was really,
Mhm.
really poetic.
Yeah, we have a huge park in Franklin Park, but and there's a nice soccer field not far from Johnetta.
Mhm.
But in the immediate Grove Hall area, I think
Right.
we could definitely use a space to congregate, to relax, to have fun.
Well, they do use that soccer field.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah, that soccer field is used all the time.
yeah.
So there are hot debates right now about permanent memorials specifically, and whether they should be taken down. There's also, you know, the one being built for the Kings. I'm curious, Larry, to get your perspective on if this park gets built or others, and the public artwork that you've been doing. So you have a banner in the Grove Hall Public Library right now. There are many examples of public art which will drop into the chat here, that were put on by the Grove Hall Main Streets with partnerships from the city. Larry, do you think we need permanent works as part of this, or temporary?
I sent you another image of a maquette that I created, which is a tribute to Duke Ellington and his Sacred Conference. And what I did was you remember I was describing that base that's in front of the Freedom House, where a sculpture used to be, and it was removed. So I took a shot this morning.
Can you see this right now?
Yeah.
There's the base in front of the Freedom House. And do you,
And there's another
there
shot
before?
of my sculpture that I just placed on top of it. I don't know if you can find that.
I can. While I'm finding that, can you tell me what was there before? Do you know?
I don't know what was there before.
Does anyone know in the chat?
I do know
in the
that
chat, somebody will know.
it was a sculpture that was kind of rejected by the community. And I really don't know why, but they did invite the artist to remove it.
Oh, okay.
So there's my piece. That's a tribute to Duke. And basically it's a maquette that I envisioned to occupy that base at about maybe 6 feet high, 7 feet high. And it's something that I've been.
So would that be permanent or
yeah, it
temporary?
would be permanent. It'd be permanent. Yep.
Johnetta, where do you fall in the permanent versus temporary?
Well, I like it all. You know, I think about the sculptures that are coming down. You know, my attitude was they shouldn't have been put up in the first place. But, you know, I don't think we're erasing history. We're rewriting our history.
I love that.
And let those statues rest in peace. They're meaningless to us. And I think they need to go into a museum or, you know, whatever. I just don't think they're relevant to the community anymore. And you could tell by people are not connecting to them at all. And that's why they're going down. And I think I like the permanent and I like installations, both.
I like both.
And I love installations because they're not permanent, but I want them to connect to the community. And I think the funding sources need to revisit their budgets. And when you revisit your budgets, I want you to think about adding community artists into your budget. I love the idea of artists from outside coming in and doing installations, and because they think outside the box. but I also think that you should partner with community artists
Right.
in either helping with, the construction or helping with the community aspect of the installation. I don't think they should be separated. So I really think these funding sources need to revisit their budget and add community artists and teams into the mix.
Yeah.
So if you're going to give the artist something, you should give the community artist something. They can all come together and they can make something great. And that's what I did at the Gardner Museum. We had artist in residence program, and I always, if the artist in residence, they didn't always want to connect with the community, but most of them did. And I made sure I put money in my budget so that a community artist, one or two, could come in and help with the educational side of the installation. And also I had my teams come in and work with the artists too. And it's just a great partnership and something that these teams and the artists always will remember and connect with.
I agree, and they will learn from each other. The artists will learn as much from.
I tell people, I not only they learn from me, but I also learn from them. Because when it comes down to technology, I have to learn from them. They tell me what to do with technology, but also other ways, so it's both, it's like a counterbalance scale. We've learned from each other.
And
I want to go ahead, Larry.
I definitely think that there's room for both aspects of art. And, I'd like to see something like an evolving mural, not a permanent mural, but something that can be changed every once in a while.
Yes.
Some murals, like there's an artist on the Quincy corridor, whose name I can't remember, but it's of a woman. Do you know which one I mean, Johnetta? It's extraordinary. It's really beautiful.
I don't. I'm not right now at this moment.
Yeah, it's a huge portrait of a Black woman, and that and pro-Black's work I would love to see, but I think there's also room for, like, for instance, the 12-foot painting called Carousel that I did that's in the library now. I'd like to see that change. It's a huge, big, beautiful presentation space. I've been up there for 15 years now, and I wouldn't mind it going down in somebody else.
Time for someone, yeah.
There's a space.
I want to make sure that you get the permission of the artist, though. I mean, I don't want to see these works that are permanent erased because of gentrification.
Oh, no.
Right,
no.
so Johnetta, let's talk about, we were talking about murals that you've seen in the past that you miss.
Well, yes, I mean, of course, Dana Chandler's mural that was in Dudley Station, and it was Knowledge is Power, Stay in School. I miss that mural every time I go down to Dudley Station. And why it was covered over, I don't know why. But, but I hope it wasn't because of gentrification, because we know that's happening in Nubian Square right now. And I just miss it, and I think it's a loss for the whole community. And that's my, that's how I think, that's my opinion. And it was put up for a reason. And why it was taken down, I don't know. So maybe someone can speak to that. But my attitude is if it needs to be conserved, then let's stop the deterioration and conserve it, or figure out how to stop the deterioration. But just because we conserve work all the time in museums, that could have been conserved easily.
And I'll try and pull up a picture of that. I know that was in a blog that one of our accelerator artists, Stephen Hamilton, put up. That's the only picture I've been able to find of it, and it is a powerful mural about knowledge. I've let this go over because we've kind of started late, but I want to get other people into the conversation. I have so much more to ask you, but this is I'm going to leave it at that and bring in Mary Liz to help us guide the rest of the conversation. There's been a lot of great chat here. A lot of friends I'm seeing. So yeah, Mary Liz, take it away. Thank you.
So if any of you have questions for the panelists or information about Grove Hall that you would like to share, if you could submit it through the Q&A function down in the menu bar with your chat, just so that I can be sure to turn your microphone on and lift your voice into the conversation, that would be great. And we've had a very active discussion. You can also continue to use the chat to talk to each other. I can kick it. Sorry, I'm like trying to do chat.
I can also follow up with one more question that I have.
That would be great.
And Johnetta, I want to recognize that you were part of Lee Ming-Wei's living room, the very first one at the Gardner Museum.
Yes.
And that's an example of you were invited to present in that, and I want you to give a chance to talk about what you were presenting there. But that program has continued on now, and I think it must be 15 or 20 years.
Right.
Continuing that model of, it's not temporary, but it continues to evolve and grow. And I think the artists that have been part of that have also diversified along the way. Right,
and Lee Ming-Wei was he is such a wonderful person and an artist that I connected with. He designed this living room where you can, there was flowers and plants and couch where the visitors can come in and talk to the people who were presenting that day. And when I decided to be in the living room, I used mentorship, and I used Alan Kreit's work and John Biggers' letters that they sent me, images of their artwork, and I talked about who they were in the part and to me, in the importance of mentorship. And a lot of times it was not just my story, other people came in with their stories, and we had an ongoing dialogue. And a lot of people learned about John Biggers and Alan Kreit because they didn't know who they were. And, but I also learned a lot from them and the reason why they came to the museum, where they came from, and their stories. So it was just a wonderful, exchange of ideas. And I think I was there, if I was there, maybe a week, I'm not sure. It was a couple of days at least. And what was wonderful about the Gardner Museum, they gave me the time also that I can be a part of the living room. And Lee Ming-Wei is an artist that really thinks outside the box. And I'm so happy that that is continuing, because it was a wonderful, wonderful idea to bring people together, to communicate and to have a dialogue about what was important to them and what impacted their lives.
So you say that exhibit is still up?
No, it was an installation.
Oh, I see.
It reoccurs every Sunday.
Yeah, I heard on National Public Radio this morning that Isabella Stewart is one of the museums that are opening up again. One of the first.
Yes, they're opening up soon. Well, it's not a large museum, so I think they can figure out how to do that.
We have Brian Hone on the call here with us from the museum, who can let us know exactly in the chat when it's going to open.
Okay.
I see we have a question here, and we have Aqua.
Yes. So Aqua Holmes, who has been named a number of times here, just asked to join in and give some of her perspective on Grove Hall, and she's already dropped a lot of knowledge in the chat about the Fern Cunningham sculpture that we discussed and all of that. So Aqua, you should be good to talk and unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes, we can.
Wait. You can have a picture too?
Yes.
I don't know how to do that. So right now, hi. Hey, everybody. I just want to, first of all, say hello to Larry and Johnetta. And listening to you guys talk has made me feel so proud of the work that artists have been doing in the Roxbury-Dorchester community for years, and how we are connected to our mentors, how we share with one another and create opportunities, sometimes out of nothing, for one another. I wanted to mention that Freedom House is very much interested in having a piece of sculpture on that pedestal.
Oh, good.
Freedom House is one of our partners with Spark the Artmobile from the Center for Art and Community Partnerships at Mass Art. It should probably be education youth focused, but I would get in touch with them and see what can happen on that.
Okay, that's great.
I kind of agree with Johnetta on quite a few things, but we were talking about outside artists coming in. And I honestly feel like in the Roxbury-Dorchester area, where you have one of the lowest per capita incomes, and that includes artists, and also you have the highest number of young people living in that area, that community artists should be given priority to create works of art, and that any artists that are coming in should be reviewed by the community artists. That's just how I feel about that. I also agree with folks who have been talking about budget. Some of the things, like the things that we were doing, the pop-up things, we didn't really have the funding to do it. So everything was done on a shoestring. And so if the city and other agencies that are working with public art, community engagement, can put something in their budget for community arts initiatives, particularly, I think Grove Hall is kind of like the centerpiece between Roxbury and Dorchester. You've got that big Mecca Mall there. You've got these busy streets like Blue Hill Avenue and Geneva Avenue, where people are flying by, but when they see something happening, they will come. So in addition to that, I want to thank Now and There for the work that they're doing to give artists who haven't had an opportunity to do public art, like myself, an opportunity with funding, because, you know, having an opportunity without funding is like not having an opportunity at all in some ways. So I want to thank you for doing that work. I hope you will continue to do it. And you've also been creating a lot of opportunities for Boston community-based artists, which I think is great. You have a wonderful staff, and I love working with you guys. As we face September, where we don't know if the high school is going to open, we don't know how the library is going to open, these are the institutions that made that Geneva Avenue lot added to its attractiveness as a place to do something. So it remains to be seen. I know that Ed Gaskin had some great things that he wanted to share about things that could happen there. And I agree with Larry, let the earth breathe. Let's take up some of that ugly concrete. It doesn't matter what we do. We could plant wildflowers there. It would be better than what's there now. And then we can take it from there. So thanks for listening.
Yeah, I think it would be so complimentary to your sunflower project as well.
Oh, definitely. I would love to plant sunflowers there. And if I can, well, wait, I have one more thing to say. I'm so sorry. So Spark the Artmobile, because we can't do our regular programming like paint nights and poetry slams and things like that, we're going to be placing murals up on chain link fences around the city. And the first installation is on the fence at Geneva Avenue. It will feature the work of Madhu Huakuja, who is one of the paint night artists. I have Larry on call. He hasn't gotten back to me yet to be an artist that we feature as well. And
you hear that, Larry?
Yeah.
You're getting called out.
And we've got 3 partners, so we'll rotate the art to the 3 different chain link galleries. So we're
wonderful.
Aqua, thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
Yes, we always love hearing from you, Aqua. I have Ed Gaskin as well, ready to talk a little bit more about that lot and what's going to be happening there. And then we have someone, Candelaria, who'd like to get on the line and share some things about funding.
James Ball here.
Yeah.
Hi, Ed.
So Ed's next.
Does that mean you guys can see me?
We can't see you, we can hear you.
All right, well, okay.
Oh no, there we go. Now we might be able to see you.
Oh, okay, all right. Here we go.
We can hear you.
So as far as I know, in terms of the lot, it's supposed, the Trust for Public Lands is just supposed to make it into a park, a passive park. And I haven't heard much from them since then. I'd lost my gallant attempt to have it made into 39 units of artist housing and a visual and performance arts destination, basically an indoor, outdoor art studio and art gallery and artist studios, because of the expense of trying to get art space and things like that in the city. So anyway, so it's supposed to be a park. I don't know what their timeline. It should be the next 5 years. And then I have some other concepts of trying to actually, I don't want to say more pop-up stuff, but a little bit more flexible kind of things that we could make it as a part for maybe like weekend outdoor art fairs or shows or performances, etc.
Farmers
But
market.
I also think it's important to have parking there too, because
Yeah, there will be parking there. The seniors the seniors weren't going to approve the park unless they got 20 parking spaces, which they did.
Yes,
Okay.
so Kelly from the Trust for Public Land is here as well and in our chat, and sort of left some information about the plans for the park, and the parking is included for the senior center there. But she also, I think, can share information about how to be part of the community process, which will be launching shortly for the development of that space. So Kelly, if you'd like to drop the link in again for how people can join the community process or find information about it, that would be really helpful. I know it's in there somewhere, but just one more time would be great. Thanks. So now I'm going to bring in Candelaria, and we'll say goodbye to you for now, Ed, but I think that what you brought to the conversation also about artist space and affordability in the neighborhood and how much that has changed is really important to keep in mind, not just funding for the art projects, but how we continue to keep the neighborhood accessible to artists for their living space as well as their working space.
Well, one of my favorite quotes is from Equin, and is, "You can't have Boston's artists of color living in Brockton."
Yes. Or Quincy or Weymouth or anywhere else.
Providence, wherever.
Yeah, agree. Right. Let's see. Let me get Candelaria on the line. Thanks again, Ed.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks, Ed.
Sorry, this takes a second. Okay. All right, Candelaria, you should be here with us now to talk about, and I think she has some things to share about funding. So when you're ready, Candelaria, you should be good to go.
Yep. I don't know what happened. Okay.
There you go.
A couple things. I'm the chair of the designators of the George B. Henderson Foundation, which I was invited to join by Byron Rushing when he was still the state rep. We do 2 technical assistance sessions for people every year where we go over the grants. That's something they never did before. I took the chairmanship, and we fund things that are visible and accessible to the public in the city of Boston, including public art, but it has to be permanent. I fought a battle for a long time, but the trust is rock solid, so we could not get it changed to temporary art. We often work in concert with the Brown Fund. Sometimes they fund something and they send them to us. Sometimes we fund something and send people to them. So the technical assistance sessions the next one will happen in September or October. Almost everybody is on this list, but if you're not on the list, you could just look up CandelariaSilva.com, send me an email through that, and I will add you to my list, because I know that Johnetta and Larry and some other people know when I find out about it, you find out about it.
That's right.
I send out information at least 5-6 times a week to various groups of artists, musicians, everybody. What I will say, a couple things, is I disagree in terms of narrowly defining community. When I ran Act Roxbury, there were artists who had grown up in Roxbury, who had moved away a year before our RFP came out. It wasn't fair to say, oh, you don't live in the community anymore, so therefore you can't participate. They were bathed in the soil of Roxbury. That's how they were brought. So I don't believe you define community narrowly. I do believe there needs to be a partnership between people who know how to do public art and people who want to learn how to do public art, and community-based artists who are not considering themselves professional artists, as well as teens who may need to get trained and need to be helped in how to get into art school. There's so many levels of need that we need to do. Project Row Houses is a very good model. They'll do international calls, but they're always hooked up with community-based artists. So I don't think we have to all narrow our thinking to have what we want to do. But I also will say is I have had two very painful experiences in public art. One was where something that the Henderson funded was not well thought out by the artist and ended up looking vandalized and raggedy and had to be decommissioned. And that was not in the Black community, but I'm not gonna say more than that online, but it was a horrible experience to have something that looked so promising. And part of what happened was that the community process where it was located kept changing where it was located. They put it in a place that was not appropriate for it. And so it started getting vandalized, and it wasn't made in a way that it could withstand being vandalized. The second thing is that the Henderson requires a maintenance plan in what we do. And we go over this in the technical. We are not going to fund something that there's no maintenance plan with.
Right.
And what happens for artists is, say Madison Park or Freedom House says they want you to do art, but they don't have any maintenance and they don't have a person who's going to do an audit of their grounds or clean their grounds or any of that. So as an artist, you may have put out a really incredible project, but if the organization you're working with does not have that, and the other thing is sometimes people don't have site control. The guy who has the pizza shop says he will let you do the mural, and then it turns out he's not the landlord. And so there are all these things, and so that's why we have the technical assistance session, and I know that's part of what Kate Gilbert would do as well. We want to inform people so that your process can be strong, and that you can get the grant, and that you can get a grant for something that is sustainable through various weather conditions. And then now, I don't know, at some point, I'm sure you all will discuss this, with the advent of the quarantine, we don't know when we will be able to have certain things happen in physical time the way that they used to. So we're all going to have to imagine a new way of working. Yeah. And I think that's going to require a bit of some of our old thinking. I took a poetry workshop online. I thought I would hate it. I ended up loving it. It was a new format. There are things I miss about being in physical time, but there were actually some things that were more relaxing about being in the space of the home and only dealing with people in the way that we're dealing now. So those are my two or three or 10 cents for today. Thanks.
It's $1 worth. Thanks, Candelaria.
Thank you.
I thought I would hate Zoom meetings, but this is turning out to be pretty cool. It's a new reality.
Well, and major snaps for shouting out the need for maintenance plans and maintenance budgets, and thinking about that. That's a big, and site research too. Those are things that we spend a lot of time thinking about here now and there, and have some resources we might be able to share on that front as well. So we have two more folks on the line. I'm going to bring Audrey Foster in briefly just to say hello. So Audrey, your mic should be good to go quickly.
Okay, I just wanted to say thank you to all of you who have participated, and a big shout out to Johnetta, who I worked with. Johnetta, I have to say, 40 years ago.
Oh, I must have been 10.
You were just one of the kids that we had at the neighborhood art center. Absolutely, one of the little kids. So thank you all. This is so helpful, and as a person who's involved with now and there, Candelaria, I appreciate the shout out. We try to do all we can with the community, but there's always more work to do.
Thanks, Audrey. And then we have Kelly Bowling from the Trust for Public Land here as well, and she's going to share a little bit more about the park across from the library on Geneva and the plans and the community process for that. We only have a couple minutes, Kelly, so I'm just going to ask you to keep it brief, and it's just going to take a second for you to be able to come in and join us. So give that a second. Okay.
Surprise, I'm a man.
Oh, I am so sorry.
No.
Oh, thank you for correcting me. What an assumption. Terrible.
I'll be quick. This is a wonderful discussion. I'm really happy to hear it. The City of Boston, after entertaining a lot of competing proposals for the site, has recently and finally committed to making this a park. There will be some parking for the senior centers that'll be a multifunctional space, but we're now just starting to work with the Parks Department after that decision's been made to map out a community process. We will definitely be building money into the budget for community created art. So I'll have more news to share in the coming months. We don't have a website yet, but I'll put my email in the chat, and please email me and I will keep everyone in the loop.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. All right. So I think with that, Kate, we can start to wrap things up. We're just about at time, and I have some links to share in the chat. We thank all of you so much for your engagement here in the chat and for joining us
Thank you.
live too. So Kate, I will let you finish up.
And thank you so much for inviting us.
Of course, of course. I think as Larry said, the gang's all here, and it is really warming to see that in these times of social distancing that we are embracing weird and new technologies. And Larry, I know it was really hard for you to come on in the beginning, so thanks for persevering.
I amazed myself.
I am struck. You did it.
Yeah.
I am struck by the spirit of generosity, the mentorship that I've seen that you guys have, both Larry and Johnetta, have shared with us, all of the people coming on. This has actually been a very encouraging call for me. I hope it has for all of you as we continue to make our way in this new world and find each other and connections. So in closing, we talked about funding. I must also thank our funders, NEFA's Fund for the Arts and the Boston Foundation, for their ongoing support of Now and There, and for generously helping us produce this series. With their support, we can make these recordings available online with closed captioning and pay each participant a living wage. Thanks for joining us for today. If you have a few more minutes, we'd love your feedback on this session. It's the 4th of 8, and we hope to continue them, but make sure that they work for all of you. So we'll put that link in the chat. And we hope you will join us next week, Thursday, July 16th, same place, same time. We're going to visit Fields Corner and ask, what does Fields Corner need right now? The special guests, Tran Vu and Lisette Lee. So we'll drop that link in the registration and registration in the chat. And I wish all of you a very wonderful day. And thank you again for spending an hour with us.
Beautiful.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. So should we leave the meeting? Okay.
You're free to leave. We're just going to wait for folks to do that.
Okay.
Thank you both.